Hello and welcome to today's episode of Daily Current Affairs with Sathya sir. This is me, Sathya from IQ Ideas, and I bring you daily news updates of GK and current affairs from a leading newspaper. I also point out interesting articles of reading comprehension that you can read to improve, of course, your reading comprehension abilities. And of course, I point out important great words of vocabulary from the various articles, which will help you enhance your knowledge of English. Today, of course, is the 1st of September. A new month has started. And without further ado, let us jump into the news articles for today. So, a slightly new format. We are trying out a slightly new format where I, instead of typing out, will be writing out the key salient features of points from the news for today. So, let's get without further ado into the main articles. As I open the newspaper, the first thing which I come across is, of course, the meeting which happened between India and China. And there are some great quotes. So, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is, of course, quoted as saying that the welfare of 2.8 billion people is linked to the ties. Now, as we know, India and China, the two most populated countries of the world, right? Uh, a huge amount of, so if we consider the entire world population to be about 8 billion, then a significant portion, almost 3/8 of the population, is from just these two countries. So the Indian Prime Minister, of course, said that a majority of the world's population's welfare is dependent upon the ties of our two countries. And of course, we have a great quote from President Xi as well, who said that friendship is, of course, the right choice for both. Now, it only time will tell how beautifully this friendship goes ahead. But with a lot of Trump tariffs playing havoc upon economies, it is absolutely imperative for the two countries to be together with each other. So, obviously, the quote is that as partners, we can help stabilize the world trade. So, amid the threat of India US ties sliding into a semi comatose state, so a great word of vocabulary, semi comatose. So, comatose is lying in coma, lying inert, lying without life, lying without functions. So, if you are in a half coma state, you are in a half neither here nor that kind of state. That's a semi comatose state. So the amid the threat of India-US ties sliding into a semi-comatose state and the global unease over US's coercive trade policies, Prime Minister Narendra Modi joined hands with Chinese President Xi Jinping to expand common ground on bilateral, regional, and global challenges, including fair trade and terrorism, both otherwise taking points in bilateral ties in multilateral platforms. As the relations improve, Modi, of course, agreed with Xi that India and China are development partners, not rivals. So that is a great, great thing. Let us see whether it develops much more. So the statement made is, of course, that we are development partners and not rivals. Rivals, enemies, foes, of course, we are not. In other news, we have uh, not much of national or global significance. So we move on to the further pages where we, of course, have the city pages. We have the state page, none of them seemingly containing information which is too relevant. So we quickly move on to the inner nation page, where of course the news continues on the ties, the talks between India and China. For Xi's outreach to Modi, dragon and elephant must come together. So that is a very interesting thing which has been said, right? Let's understand what is meant by this quote, that the dragon and the elephant must come together. Now, why have these two animals being talked about? So, of course, dragon, it represents China, and elephant, it of course represents India, right? So whenever sort of reference has to be made to these two countries in terms of animals, China is always represented by the dragon. Sometimes we also have the panda as a representative of China. India, of course, represented by the elephant, but of course, we also have the lion, the tiger, the peacock, which could be representatives. For Russia, usually it is the bear which serves as the animal representative, and US, of course, the bald-headed eagle. So that's just an article which can be read. The next nation page is just a warning about red alert due to extremely heavy rains. So it quickly brings us to the middle page. And in the middle page, of course, we have commentary by experts. This is by Vijay Gokhale, who was the former ambassador to China. And he has an article, What Tianjin Means, What It Doesn't. And the byline reads, for India, Modi-Xi meeting is part of its foreign policy rebalance in a topsy-turvy world. So an interesting word, topsy-turvy. So in Hindi, we might say uthal puthal, something which is turned on its head, something which does not make sense. So for India, the Modi-Xi meeting is part of its foreign policy rebalance in a topsy-turvy world, but action needs to follow China's warm words. And it's possible for a stable Indo-China relationship to coexist with a strategic Indo-US partnership. So on one hand, we have India and China working together. On the other hand, we also need to have a decent relationship with US. So can India be the bridging gap between the Chinese and the Americans? Only time will tell. But following our non-aligned mentality, something for which we have always been the forebearers of, let's see whether India can once again play its diplomatic role in bringing about great ties. And in the current world of economics, in the current world where business and finance rules everything, let us see whether we can actually use our diplomatic strengths to establish better relationships. Below that, we have an article by Ashwin Sanghi, who is an author of serial works of fiction, and I have read a few of his books, pretty decent and interesting. So, Dawn as the sun sets on the American empire. Imperial powers mistake dominance for permanence and blind themselves to decay within. America, ruled by war industry and tech elite, risks treading that same path led by Trump. So this should be pretty interesting read written by a well-known author. So the use of language would be great. So as a means of improving your English, this one middle column I would definitely urge you to read. Then, of course, we have an article on the left, again related to the India-China meeting. We have a general article on how new studies show basic hygiene can reduce infections in Indian hospital. A bit of knowledge which has been around, which has been known for decades, but yet is sometimes very simply forgotten, the importance of hygiene. And then, of course, we have Jugular Vein, the humor column by Jug Suraya on conversion, many versions. Political parties are the forever switcheroos, try anti-converting them. Pretty interesting title, but what does it say? Read and find out. Next, we have a science page, how rogue waves strike and leave ships all at sea. Modern ships may be stronger, but extreme waves haven't gone away. AI tools are now showing promise in forecasting these massive walls of water before they hit. So the use of technology for our ocean-faring vessels. Moving ahead, another nation page, nothing much. On the business page, we of course have few articles which are focusing on the recent changes in the GST, the goods and the services tax. So putting that up on the screen, the GST or the goods and services tax was something which has been in news. So there are a couple of articles related to that. One is hotel rooms and casinos servicing facing 12% and 28% GST in focus. E-commerce sellers brace for billing woes amid festive rush and other things. Okay, we quickly move on to the next, the global page, where of course we have news related to the Gaza conflict. Uh, Trump saying that voter ID must be a part of every vote, will sign an executive order to that effect, and that's it. For sports, we of course have news about the US Open, where Canada's augur Alisime puts behind past struggles and stunts Zverev to reach last 16 in New York. So, for tennis fans, they would be following the US Open with great interest. Of course, a lot remains to be seen on who reaches the quarters, the semis, and the finals, and that is when the real news will start coming. But now, in the preliminary stages, we would have articles focusing on tennis, just as we had a lot of articles focusing on cricket when the India England Test series was going on last month. Okay, that pretty much brings us to the end of the paper and the news for today. Nothing big, nothing very new. Of course, the focus has been on Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping's meet, the ties between India and China, and how probably they could be improved, leading to better future. So that is pretty much the session for today. If you have liked this episode, do hit that like button, share it with your friends, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already done so, leave your comments below. This is me, Satyanarayan, signing off for today. Wish you all the very best and have a good day.